They sold you freedom. They delivered exploitation. Uber and Lyft told millions of drivers they could be their own boss. No manager, no schedule, just flexibility and freedom. But behind that promise was something much darker. What they really built was a trap. No health care, no job security, no guaranteed income. You only get paid when you're moving, but you're working the entire time. And when there's no ride, you wait for free. This isn't innovation. This is modern serfdom. Uber and Lyft pushed all the costs onto drivers, gas, maintenance, time, and took a massive cut off the top, all while pretending it's your business. And the worst part? Most people still think gig work is an opportunity. But the ones actually profiting are the companies taking a cut from every single ride. By the end of this video, you'll see how Uber and Lyft pulled off the most brilliant labor scam of the 21st century, and why millions are trapped inside it. Uber and Lyft didn't start as ride-hailing apps. They started as ideas, disruptive, liberating, revolutionary. At least, that's how they sold it. In the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, people were desperate. Unemployment was sky high, traditional jobs were vanishing. And Uber came along offering a lifeline. Drive when you want, earn what you need. It sounded like hope wrapped in an app. Their message was brilliant. Be your own boss. Not get a job, not work for us, but start your own business. With Uber taking a cut, of course. You weren't a worker. You were an entrepreneur. Except that was a lie. Uber and Lyft controlled the prices. They set the terms. They tracked every second of your shift. They decided how much a ride was worth. And they decided how much you were worth. Real bosses don't get algorithmically fired. But by framing it all as empowerment, they sidestepped labor laws. No minimum wage, no benefits, no union. Because technically you weren't employed. You were just using the platform. This wasn't a tech innovation. It was a rebranding of old-school exploitation, wrapped in slick UX and startup buzzwords. And millions of people signed up for it. And once you're inside the system, you realize there's no steering wheel for the driver. Uber and Lyft control the entire experience without ever calling themselves your boss. It's not a manager telling you what to do. It's an algorithm you can't question, can't talk to, and definitely can't argue with. That algorithm doesn't just monitor you. It manipulates you. It learns your habits, knows when you're most desperate for money, and sends jobs just good enough to keep you working, but never enough to make you stable. You think you're choosing your hours, but surge pricing nudges you to drive when the company needs you. Incentives pull you in, then vanish when supply is high. This isn't freedom. It's behavioral conditioning wrapped in code. The pay structure makes sure of that. They split rides into micropayments, base fare, time, distance, bonuses. But they change constantly, and you never see how your pay is actually calculated. Want to know how much Uber made on your last ride? You can't. Because transparency is bad for control. Then there's the psychological pressure of ratings. You're always one bad rating away from losing everything. So you're not just driving, you're appeasing. Smiling through abuse, tolerating harassment, biting your tongue because a 4.5-star average isn't good enough. All while the companies say, "You're not our employee, but you sure as hell better behave like one." When you're an Uber or a Lyft driver, every single cost is yours. You pay for the gas. You pay for the car. You pay for the repairs when a rider spills coffee on your seats. But you get none of the benefits. No health insurance, no paid sick leave, no unemployment, no retirement, no security. Get sick? That's your problem. Stay home and you don't get paid. Drive sick and you risk your health and everyone else's. One driver in California got COVID. He quarantined for 5 days. He asked Uber if there was any compensation. They sent him a form that he never heard back from. A single mom in Detroit missed a ride because her child was in the ER. Lyft penalized her account for the cancellation. She lost her bonus streak. Lost income for 2 days. These aren't rare stories. They're normal. Because when you're not an employee, the company owes you nothing. And that's exactly how they like it. And remember, you're still working under their rules. They set the prices. They control the customer. But when something goes wrong, they vanish. Uber and Lyft love to say, be your own boss. But the moment you need support, suddenly, you're on your own. The thing is, the truth will never stay buried forever. Eventually, someone was going to blow the lid off the lie. In Massachusetts, Uber and Lyft paid out $175 million in 2024. But not because they admitted wrongdoing, because they were terrified of what a guilty verdict would expose. The state accused them of breaking wage laws, misclassifying workers, and robbing drivers of basic protections. And even though drivers are still classified as contractors, this settlement forced them to introduce paid sick leave, health stipends, and accident insurance. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. But that's just the start. In California, a new law, AB 5, made it illegal to classify workers as contractors if they're doing the core business of the company. Which basically means if you're a driver for a driving app, you're not a contractor, you are the business. Handy. The Uber for maids got caught using the same tactics and got slammed with a $6 million settlement for exploiting over 25,000 cleaners. Some workers were fined for leaving jobs where clients sexually harassed them. Others were punished for calling the police. These lawsuits are showing us what the companies really fear. Not bad press, not public backlash. Accountability. And then there's the data. Fair Work, a global watchdog, ranked gig platforms on fair pay, conditions, contracts, and representation. Out of 10 possible points, Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash scored 0. Not low, not poor. 0. And this isn't just an American problem. Globally, most gig apps are failing to meet the bare minimum standards of decency. So what does that tell us? This isn't a few bad actors. This is the business model. Here's the part no one wants to admit. Every cheap ride you've taken, every food delivery you've ordered in your pajamas, came at a cost, and someone else paid it. We've been trained to see gig work as a win-win. You save money, they get flexible hours. But the math doesn't lie. Drivers are losing money just so you can save a few bucks. And the corporations, they pocket the difference. Think about it. If a $10 delivery gets split 3 ways, and the driver also pays for gas, time, and vehicle maintenance, how much are they really making? Spoiler, sometimes less than minimum wage. But it's not just ride-hailing. This is how fast fashion works. It's how Amazon built a logistics empire. It's how food delivery apps scale without ever owning a kitchen. Exploit the labor, hide the cost, sell the illusion of a bargain. And we've bought into it. Not because we're evil, but because it's so damn convenient. But convenience always has a price. And when you're not paying it, someone else is. This isn't just about gig companies. This is a mirror, and it's asking us who we really are. Here's the twist most people never hear. The system can work, but not like this. Exploitation isn't the business model, it's a choice. Let's be real, Uber and Lyft didn't invent gig work, but they did perfect how to scale it without responsibility. And that's where the fix begins. First, classify workers as what they actually are, employees. Give them access to sick leave, health insurance, and legal protections. No more hiding behind independent contractor loopholes. If a company controls your work, they should be accountable for it. Second, support collective power. Unionization isn't just for factories. It's for drivers, cleaners, couriers. When workers speak together, they stop being invisible. And here's the proof it can work. Companies like Alto pay their drivers full-time wages with benefits, and they're still making money. Fairness isn't a cost, it's a competitive advantage. But the real question is, will we demand it? Change won't come from the top. It'll come from legislation, lawsuits, and everyday consumers who say enough is enough. Your clicks, your dollars, your choices. They matter. The gig economy isn't going away, but whether it becomes a force for good or a permanent scam depends on what we do next. This was never about freedom. It was about freeing companies from any responsibility for the people who make them money. We thought Uber and Lyft were tech companies, but they don't sell rides. They sell labor infrastructure without owning a single employee. They don't disrupt industries. They outsource accountability. And if you don't own the means of production, you're not an entrepreneur, you're just paying rent to work. Gas, insurance, repairs, that's on you. But control, that's all theirs. The real scam wasn't the pay. It was the illusion, the branding, the myth of being your own boss. When the app decides where you go, how much you earn, and when you work, is that freedom? Or is it just a fancier cage? We thought we were breaking the system. But the truth is, the system evolved. It got sleeker, shinier, and way smarter. And if we don't push back now, this won't stop with ride shares. It will become the blueprint for every industry that wants labor without liability.